Hi, this is Alessio. Hope you're well with a quick update for you on Bitcoin. So finally, Bitcoin has decided to make a move. And today we finally saw that move happening. In fact, as you can see here, a major drop in the price of Bitcoin here on the hourly chart time frame. And on this daily chart, you can see that it's now edging closer and closer to our second downside target. I'll tell you more about that in a few minutes. First of all, before we go on to talk about Bitcoin's next potential targets, it's important to remember a few important things, which is that about a couple of weeks ago, you might remember I mentioned this important point. If you go back to my video from about a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned about a potential bull trap here on Bitcoin. And you remember what I was talking about. When Bitcoin came right up here to these two levels, the 21 daily moving average and the 200 daily moving average, this, I said at the time, was likely a bull trap. Why? Because it couldn't get anything through it. It just couldn't get through that level. As you can see here, it stalled right beneath those two key levels, the 21 and the 200, and then it dropped from that level, indicating a likely bull trap, which is pretty much what I said in my video, again, from the 11th of October, that this was likely a bull trap. In other words, a bearish signal for Bitcoin. By the way, I also said in my previous video that the likely rally we saw on Bitcoin up to the 8750 levels was likely an ABC corrective wave, which so far that has proven to be correct. But that's not all. If you recall from our member videos, if you've been following our member videos, then you'll know that we've been anticipating this downward move for some time. In fact, let me play for you a very short clip of my member video from just a few days ago. This level just tested several times before. Coming close now to that level, 7,700. So as we mentioned before, as Charlie Burton and I have mentioned before, whenever price comes down to test key support level, well, how many times we tested this now? 1, 2, 3. Very close now to a fourth potential test of this level here, which is quite likely now, which is looking quite likely that we may actually break below that support level. A move below 7,700 opens the door for a potential move down to 7,200. We've got a pulse here as well. This pulse is not fired yet. But again, as I mentioned previously, given the fact that the gamma conformation is red, that shows a path of least resistance is to the downside. The trend is still to the downside. We're still below the 21 moving average here. All right, guys, as you heard there, we said that essentially Charlie's rule is going to apply. So you heard me mention Charlie's rule, that the more times price tests the key level, the more likely it's going to break it. We've been testing this level for many times now, and it came here for the fourth time and eventually broke this level to the downside. That's not all. I mentioned also the gamma conformation was likely, because it's red, the path of least resistance to the downside, and actually puts the next likely target for Bitcoin at the 61.8% retracement. If I just zoom out here, you'll see what I'm referring to. So if we just take a look there at the rally from Bitcoin from really last year all the way to the top, the highs we made there, the 61.8% retracement puts it at the about 72.20, more or less. By the way, I should just let you know, that 61.8% retracement is only if you're looking at a standard chart. So I'm looking at a standard Bitcoin chart here on TradingView. But if I switch this to a logarithmic chart, which is a chart that some traders look at. So some traders, like my good friend Peter Brandt, he looks at the logarithmic chart of Bitcoin. And on that chart, the 61.8% Fibonacci retracement is much lower. Is it actually 5,500? Okay, so my good friend Peter Brandt, he expects Bitcoin eventually, he says it's a wild guess, but nonetheless, he expects Bitcoin to go to 5,500 at a 61.8% retracement. My own expectation actually is not as bearish as Peter's, so I'm using here the standard chart. Now, personally, I prefer the 61.8% on the standard charts rather than the logarithmic. I'm not saying Peter's wrong, but nonetheless, I think that the levels on the standard chart, I favor them most. That's the first level I think that could be tested probably very soon, 72.20. The question then becomes, what if that level gets breached? What if that level actually gets broken to the downside, which I think is probable? Then we have to go to a weekly chart time frame. So if we take a look at this weekly chart of Bitcoin, you will see I have two levels. Well, actually, it's more or less one level that I'm watching. But in any case, the 50 simple moving average here is the level I'm keeping an eye on here on this chart of TradingView. And the reason I look at this level here, something interesting that Jerry Parker mentioned in the video I played for you last time as well. So Jerry Parker said that he quite likes to use the 52-week moving average, as you can see here. He said this in the book by Michael Covell on Turtle Traders. So that is a level that I do keep an eye on the 50 simple moving average on the weekly time frame, which puts it actually more or less at the yeah, I think that puts it more or less 6,700 there. And if those levels hold, then it's quite likely we might see wave 2 of the wild card scenario completing there. So in the wild card scenario, which I think is my primary, my preferred scenario at the moment, this has about a 60% probability at the present moment. So in other words, in the wild card scenario, the wave 2 could likely complete in the, again, potentially coming down to some key levels like the weekly averages. By the way, before I finish the video, I just want to mention something else here as well. On the MT4 chart, on the chart that excludes weekend data, there is a level here that is worth just keeping an eye on, and that's a 200 daily moving average on the chart that excludes weekend data. Now, as you know, the charts which exclude weekend data, like MT4, they have different levels. So here, the green line is a 200 moving average here. Which currently is where Bitcoin is resting. So I'm curious to find out whether that level holds or not. Again, I'm leaning towards it potentially may not hold, purely because I think the weekly levels are just more interesting. Probably they're more stronger. But nonetheless, that daily 200 moving average at the moment is the green line you see right there. That it's worth keeping an eye on just there, because if we see a potential bounce off these levels, if we see suddenly a bounce, off these levels that takes us above the prior highs on Bitcoin, I may have to change my mind on Bitcoin, and I may have to take a more bullish stance on Bitcoin. But again, for me at the present moment, I think that the 61.8% retracement level that I mentioned previously and the weekly levels are probably more, I think, more likely. But again, this is a level that we've seen tested before, and it has caused bounces before in the past. So I'm keeping an eye on it. Let's see how Bitcoin reacts to this level. All right. And again, any further downside here is going to bring into play the weekly levels I mentioned before. All right, guys, hope this video helps. If it has, please give it a thumbs up, and also please subscribe for future videos. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the webinar tomorrow. The link is in the description. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.